Here we go. Now, let me see if I got this right. All right. So, you guys know me and Alice, I hope so. But I'm Katrin, and Alice is the director of fundraising, and she and I are presenting on balancing bipolar disorder, home life, and work life. So let me share my screen. Oh, wrong one. Share screen. Excuse my horrible technology skills. File. There we go. Okay. Let's see. How do I do this? All right. Can you guys see the screen?
Yep.
And you can hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So balancing bipolar disorder, home life, and work life. Who struggles with any of this? So, today what we're going to talk about is, first we're going to do our introduction. We're going to talk about reaching overall balance, reaching balance at work, reaching balance at home, and then we're going to summarize what we are talking about. So for our introduction, we're just going to talk briefly about ourselves. So my name is Katrin. I'm a licensed graduate professional counselor, so technically a therapist. I am also a researcher for the Bipolar Collaborative Network, Dr. Robert Post, and I specialize in treating bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, and trauma in my therapy practice. I went to Washington Adventist University, and I also run research and conversations about bipolar disorder. Oh,
Oh, my bio disappeared from this presentation. That's okay. Yeah, because I sent you. Remember, I sent you my pic, my bio. Remember, it doesn't matter. My name is
wait. Let me stop this for a second. This is not cool.
It's okay.
Uh,
I'm good at winging it.
Why? Guys, I'm so sorry. This is my technology skills. Okay.
Don't be. You're learning new tech.
Okay, so let's see. How do I share the screen again? There we go. All right, so bum, bum, bum. What am I doing? How do I share the screen? Oh, there we go. Sorry, guys. Okay, so this is the right one.
Oh, cool.
So, all right. In this presentation, we're going to explore practical strategies for achieving harmony in these realms. We'll delve into understanding bipolar disorder's impact, discuss effective coping mechanisms, emphasize the role of support networks, and underscore the significance of self-care. So I just told you guys a little bit about me. That's a picture of me. And this is Alice.
Hi, my name is Alice Sotner. I am a clinical compliance manager and educator. I've been working in behavioral health and mental health for the last 20 years. I have a master's degree in counseling psychology. In addition to working with research and conversations about bipolar disorder, I also write articles about managing everyday life with bipolar disorder through lifestyle tips and tricks. I'm the director of fundraising for our nonprofit.
And I just want to say that Alice's writing is really awesome, so you guys should check out her articles.
Thank you. I write under the name Betty because I try to separate my work life from my writing life because we're two very different people.
All right, so reaching overall balance. balance. Alice, are you doing this one or me?
What comes before balance? What comes after balance?
Work.
Oh, I'm doing the work. So you're doing the overall balance.
Okay. All right. So one thing that is really, really, really important. Well, there's a lot of really important things, but taking your meds. Remembering to take your meds every day. So there are some things that you can do to help. Life charting. We hand out the NIM life chart, the NIM life chart method mood journal. If anyone wants a copy of it, it's free. We send it all over the world. It helps track your mood. It also shows patterns in how medications are working, if they're working, if they're not working. So if you are if you're interested in one, just let us know. Pill boxes are great, especially ones that have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on them, because you can tell if you've missed a day, and it just keeps you on track. Setting alarms on your phone, really helpful. I don't set alarms on my phone. I have an app called Medisave, and it reminds me every day at 12 o'clock. And if I don't take my medications and check it off, it starts an alarm every 5 minutes for an hour until I take my medicine. And then visual reminders, leaving your medications, like leaving your pill box out with a glass of water, a pen, and your mood journal. So this is an example of the NIM Life Chart Method mood journal. So if you look at it, like all the medications are at the top. You can see the days of the week, 1 through 31, and you check off the medication that you've taken that day, and then where your mood's at, and it's really simple, really, really helpful. You go from, they're stable, and then you have the mania side and the depression side, and on the side you can read more energized and productive with little or no functional impairment. Check that off if that's how you're feeling, and so on. So this is just a picture of what we send out for our medication adherence kits. The pill bottles do not come with it, but we do send out pill boxes and pens and the NIM Life Chart Method mood journals and stickers. So setting an alarm on your phone. Reaching overall balance. Eating a balanced, healthy diet. Eat throughout the day. Use snacks appropriately. Avoid caffeine. Caffeine, not so great. Really affects anxiety. And definitely refrain from using illicit drugs and alcohol. Not good with medications, first off, and second off, with our bipolar brains and the levels of dopamine that we have in our brains, you can develop psychosis. It can make alcohol and other drugs are depressants. It's just really good to avoid drugs and alcohol. We are not like neurotypical people. We have to be careful with things that we do. Practice good sleep hygiene. Our circadian rhythm is very, very important with bipolar disorder. So have a good sleep schedule in place. Avoid staying up too late or sleeping in on the weekends. It's great for mood stability. Like I mentioned, your circadian rhythm. Our circadian rhythm plays a huge role in our moods. Another thing is turning off social media, your phone while in bed. The blue lights from TVs, phones, all of that will keep you up. I don't do this, and I don't think that anyone should do it who has problems sleeping. Don't have a TV in your room. It'll keep you up. And sometimes people fall asleep to TV, but it's really not healthy. And it actually does keep you up. If you've ever learned about good sleep hygiene, that is one of the most important things is not having a TV in your room and avoiding blue lights. Another thing, if you can't sleep, it's best not to just sit in bed and do nothing. Get up, drink some milk or have some dairy. Apparently turkey, I forget what it's called.
Tryptophan.
Tryptophan is good to help you sleep. And also just like reading or take a bath, something calming, low lights. So therapy is super important. And as a therapist, I can say that like therapy does work. You just have to find the right therapist. If you do not have the right therapist, you're probably going to think, okay, therapy is just like not for me. But it can really open up so much for you. It can help you identify your triggers, teach you effective coping skills, help you improve relationships, teach you effective self-monitoring strategies. And there are certain types of therapy that are really good for bipolar disorder. So if you're looking for a therapist, if you're looking for a therapist to help you with bipolar disorder specifically, you might want to try looking for one that does interpersonal and social rhythm therapy, or family focused therapy. Now that's going to be kind of hard. There are only a few therapists in this country who do family focused therapy, but looking for a therapist who will do psychoeducation with you, who will teach you communication skills, who will teach you problem solving skills for when you are in an episode. Also with bipolar disorder, forgot to mention this, ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, if you've ever heard of that. Exercise. So exercise can boost your mood when you're feeling depressed. It helps provide distraction from negative thought patterns, and it increases endorphins. And I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie
Legally Blonde.
Legally Blonde. Have you guys ever seen the movie Legally Blonde? No? Okay. Forget it. There was a part in the movie that just mentioned it, and it was funny, but I'm a little old, so it might just be me. All right, so identify your triggers. Everyone has triggers. So learn what your triggers are and be mindful of them. Practice grounding techniques when you are around your triggers. Every therapist is going to teach you this, the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. It is a grounding technique where basically you want to get yourself in the moment. You want to look around you, see 5 things around you, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And take your time as you're doing it, and do it over and over and over again. Ground yourself. Really, when you're pointing out 4 things that you can feel, actually like try to feel them. Like right now while I'm sitting here, I'm feeling my arms resting on my chair. I'm feeling my fingers on my hips. I'm feeling my feet on the ground. Really try to get yourself in the moment. It can help when you're having a hard time. There's also box breathing. So it's breathing in, counting to 4 slowly, letting the air enter your lungs, holding your breath for 4 seconds, avoiding inhaling and exhaling for 4 seconds, and then slowly exhaling through your mouth for 4 seconds. And you repeat these steps 1 to 3 until you feel recentered. And as you're doing this, like I said, really get yourself in the moment. Know your symptoms for when you are about to become symptomatic. So psychoeducation is so important, and it's not used often enough. When you are, if you're having trouble taking your meds or having trouble sleeping, if you're working all the time, talking too much, talking to strangers, spending too much money, if you're having a lack of interest in activities, if you're isolating yourself, if you've got a lack of appetite, something's up. Know your symptoms. Know what is, know what's coming. Well, you know what's coming, an episode's coming, but know what signs are bringing on are no sorry guys, know the signs of an episode, for you in particular. Surround yourself with positivity. So try not to engage in negative media or online pursuits. For me, I have to avoid the news often. Only engage with media that provides you with useful information or laughter. I know that's hard, and you can't always do that. Use it as an asset and not as a rage fuel. Avoid overly violent and dramatic shows and movies. Be mindful of the media you consume. Don't obsess over news and politics. Do things that are constructive. Find hobbies. Listen to music, sing, enjoy music. Pets are great. Pets, children, loved ones, and emotional support animals. If any of you have a therapist, and you have a pet, always get an emotional support animal, an ESA letter from them, just in case you ever need it. They allow you to have a pet in a like rented property. They're not technically service animals, but they're treated kind of like service animals where you can keep them. There's no pet deposit. They're treated like property, and not like an animal. And decide to thrive. It's not easy. Like when things are bad, don't let it get you so far down. Know that tomorrow is another day, and it's another day to try something new. And it's not just thinking happy thoughts. No, you're not letting yourself down. Make a concentrated effort to not give up on yourself. Don't use bipolar disorder as an excuse for bad behavior or to be a victim. Please be aware of the effect you have on the people around you. That is very important. We all have families, friends, and that we love, and we do not want to hurt them. And sometimes when we're hurting, we take it out on the people that we care about most. It's really, really good to have boundaries there, so that you don't push them away or scare them. All right, so reaching balance at work. This is Alice.
Thank you. So I just want to say that I've worked at my fair share of really, really toxic work environments, very fast-paced, toxic work environments. And based on what kept me sane, I wanted to share all that. That's why I'm talking about this particular thing. I'm really passionate specifically about working with bipolar disorder. So make sure that you're practicing self-care throughout the day. Sometimes when we think about self-care, we think about, going to the spa or bubble baths and chocolate cake and champagne. But self-care isn't always so fancy and indulgent. It's little things throughout the day, like taking small breaks to clear your mind, using mindfulness throughout the day, like what Kat just talked about, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the square breathing, things like that. Again, being aware of your triggers at work is super important. Like for myself, when I work, I'm aware that my triggers, I get anxious very easily, and my triggers are feeling like I'm around aggressive people or being around aggressive people, because people who are rude, who yell, who get passive aggressive, moody, that is a trigger for me. So I'm aware of that. So when somebody acts in a way, or if I perceive them to be acting in a way, because I'm also really sensitive and my perception is not always an accurate portrayal of reality, I'm able to be aware of that, and then I can go take a small break or use grounding technique. So that's what my triggers are. So, or well, one of my triggers, a couple of my triggers. So just make sure that you're aware of yours, and then you'll be able to work around those. Make sure that you eat, because if you don't eat throughout the day, it can really affect your blood sugar, and blood sugar does affect mood lability. So make sure that you have breakfast, that you have lunch. And if you're like me and you are too busy to eat a meal, keep high protein snacks with you. So I always keep like unsalted almonds at my desk, low sugar protein bars, low sugar meal replacement shakes. And then also for myself, I sometimes get too stressed out or too busy and I forget to eat, but that's not an excuse. So I set alarms to remind me about mealtime. I'm the kind of person to get wrapped up and forget to eat. But when I don't eat, low blood sugar feels like anxiety, and it can actually cause a hypomanic episode. So make sure that you're eating, then you're eating like high protein, healthy, low carb foods. And again, avoid caffeine overload. I'm the kind of person who I love to have a cup of coffee if I'm feeling uninspired, but caffeine is really, really not great for you. It can trigger anxiety, it can trigger hypomania, and it also affects our ability to regulate our sleep cycle, and sleep hygiene is so important. So even though sleep is something that we don't do at the office or at work, unless you're doing it wrong, sleep hygiene plays a huge role the next day. So making sure that you stay away from caffeine helps you sleep better, and sets you up for better days. Next, please.
Oh, what just
Yeah.
happened?
I can't switch I can't
Yeah, I know you can't. I don't know what just happened.
oh, maybe can I? No.
Shoot. Oh, there we go.
There you go. Find your happy place at work. So I get stressed out when I'm at work. When I get stressed out, which is all the time, I'm a very high stress person. So there are things that I've found in my life that bring me joy and kind of center me. So I found those things and I bring them and incorporate them into my day as much as possible. So I love cute, adorable stationery. There's an example. I keep stationery with me at all times. I keep cute, cheerful stationery, pens that just bring me joy, things that I enjoy using. It boosts my mood throughout the day. If you can, listen to your happy place. I like to listen to podcasts and old YouTube playlists, and I have a lot of different Spotify playlists. So depending on my mood and what I'm doing, I go to those things while I'm at work, because it does center me and it brings me joy. If I'm listening to stand-up comedy or an interesting podcast or some really good motivational music. And also, if possible, and this isn't always something that's feasible where you work, depending on what the culture is like, depending on if you trust people or not, to find an ally that you can confide in if you're having a hard time. I don't say this lightly. I've worked places for years and I didn't have an ally I could confide in, but my current job, I do have someone. I have bipolar disorder. She has ADHD. So we kind of like touch base with each other and check in. If we're having a bad day, we can check in with each other, and it's a safe place to vent. But you don't necessarily have that option. And I always say, like, don't disclose your condition to just anybody. You really have to build trust, and make sure that you really trust somebody to give them that information. But if you can, it is a really wonderful asset if possible. But if not, surrounding yourself with other positive, happy things really does make a big difference. At my last job, I used to be, constantly, it was very fast paced, very, very, very toxic bosses. And my favorite go-to was this YouTube playlist that I would just listen to. And I would listen to the same episodes over and over and over again. And it was like spending time with an old friend. It was the repetition and knowing what they were going to say just brought me a lot of peace and really did help ground me, even though I felt like I was losing it. So those are how I find my happy place. So start experimenting to find what your things are. If you have sick time, use it. Mental health days are a thing for a reason. It's because bipolar disorder is a chronic illness, and some days we wake up on the bad side of the bipolar disorder, and working is just not feasible. So if you have the ability to call out of work, do that. But I will also say that if you don't make a habit of doing calling out just because you don't think you can, I ran into the problem back in the day when I just saw like, oh, sick days, I can use sick days as much as I want to use sick days, but you don't want to use them all on days when you could probably do something and then not have your sick time. So make sure that you use your sick time, but use it sparingly and use it only when absolutely necessary. Because if you overuse it, you'll have problems when you really need it. And also, depending if you have repetitious call out, sometimes management's not thrilled with that. Like you call out on the same time every week. If you always call out on Fridays or you always call out on Mondays, even that has nothing to do with it, they sense a pattern. Management's not thrilled. I can tell you that as a manager, if somebody has repeated call outs on the same days, you raise an eye. Like, are you really using your sick time, or are you just on a 3-day weekend? Um, and also what you should do is write down if you are taking time off for your bipolar disorder, write down the times that you do on a calendar, just so you can track how much you're using. And my recommendation is if you have a number of call outs for bipolar disorder, if you can work with your doctor, your treating physician, to get doctor's notes, because those really are worth their weight at the office, because it does show that you're being treated for a condition. And sometimes management will ask for like a doctor's note. So utilize your prescriber, your doctor, for doctor's notes if need be. Stick to a schedule. If you can do it, keep to a regular schedule. So if you're working a 5 Monday through Friday, don't work weekends. If you're working a 9 to 5, don't work nights. Know your limits and stick to a schedule even on the weekends, because if we overwork ourselves, that's just a recipe for mania. So always just make sure that you're doing what you're doing in the time that you allot for your work. Unless you're getting paid by the hour like a lawyer, we don't get paid extra to work longer. And we do have health conditions, and we can't overwork it, or we can run into serious issues. And that's something that just happened to me, where I was overdoing it at the office. I was working 9 to 10 hour days, sometimes 11-hour days. I made sure to not work on the weekends because that's my hard limit, but it really did take a huge toll on me mentally, because it was like trying to get water from an empty glass. So stick to that schedule and work to that schedule if possible. Even on weekends, stick to a schedule, because I find that if you're working, a regular day, a job during the day, during the week, you go to bed at a certain time every night. I find sticking to the same kind of schedule over the weekend does help. So you're not staying up super late or sleeping in, and that just kind of keeps us regulated. And and knowing your limits is really important, because I know if I work too much, then I end up having no resources to really care for myself. So schedules are really important. And then it also helps you stick to mealtime. It helps you be consistent with eating and being consistent with your meals, because if you do something the same time every day, it's easier to do, because it becomes habit. Just remember that your job is not your identity. Having a job is wonderful, and it's a really helpful experience. It can give you a sense of purpose and a sense of pride, and it can really build your confidence, but it's not who you are as a person. It is just one aspect of who you are. So and that's been one of my big issues, is like I always like kind of identify myself with my job, and then that's never a good thing, because I'm a complex person. We're all complex people, and we're multifaceted. So I work hybrid, so sometimes I'm in the office and sometimes I work from home. So it's always good to have a visualization to differentiate between work and being at home. So when I am working out in the office, when I'm out in my office and I come home for the day, opening the door to my house is my key to say, okay, well, I'm putting the day behind me. I'm entering my home. My home is my second part of my day, leaving work at work. And when I'm working from home in my office, when I leave my home office for the day, I shut the door behind me. And that's like me leaving the office for the day to focus on other things. And I find it really helpful when I have the differentiation so I can spend my be mindful where I am. So I'm not in the office mentally while I'm, cooking dinner or watching TV after dinner. So that's why setting boundaries is really, and that's all about setting boundaries between your work and your personal life. And when you're able to set boundaries between the two, you realize that you're a lot more complex and that you have a lot of different facets to your personality and your identity. And your job is not just who you are. Know what your rights are. So if you're struggling, if you are at your job and you're struggling, you have to be aware that your job is required to provide you with realistic accommodations, because bipolar disorder is a condition that's protected under the Americans with Disability Act, the ADA. And if you are struggling with aspects of your work, you can get accommodations. Well, you can request accommodations depending on the situation. They may or may not be granted. A lot of that has to do with employment size. I believe the legal requirements, I'm not a lawyer, so don't quote me. I believe an agency a company needs to have at least 7 to 9 employees for ADA to be applicable. But and accommodations have to be reasonable and realistic. They have to allow you to continue to do the scope of your duties. So if you're working with a caseload of 35 people, a client caseload of 35 people, but you need accommodations and you're like, well, I want a smaller caseload of 10 people. That's not a realistic accommodation. You have to still be able to do the full scope of your duty. So find out what is and isn't protected. You can use your paid and unpaid time off, depending on your agency. Most agencies provide 12 weeks annually of FMLA, family medical leave of absence. Sometimes we need to use that if we need to go to the hospital or have an extended time off from work. You have to have a condition that's protected under the ATA. You can't just be like, well, I don't want to talk about what my disorder is, but I need accommodations. You actually have to have an ADA disorder to have accommodations, and they have to be realistic. And I'll disclose right now, I am working right now at my office. I do hybrid, but right now I am on accommodations for me to work entirely from home 5 days a week. Prior to a couple of weeks ago, I was working in the office 3 days a week, but things got really toxic. I had a major mixed episode, and I spoke to my psychiatrist about being on a work from home for 30 days remote. And it was a process. It wasn't just me calling work and saying, hey, I need to work remote, accommodations, all that. It was a process. My doctor actually had to fill out paperwork and send it to their HR person. And they had to ask, they had to deem if working from home was considered full scope of duty. So it is a process, but it's a very worthwhile process if need be, because again, bipolar disorder is an ADA protected condition. So talk to your doctor and talk to your HR department if you think that you do need accommodations. Do not, and I can't state this enough, do not talk to your boss or your colleague or your colleagues about accommodations, because they're not allowed to know your conditions. That's considered protected health information, and that's only something that can be worked out with HR. Your boss is not bound by confidentiality laws in the way that your HR department is, because bosses are just as susceptible to the rumor mill as our colleagues, but HR are bound by federal laws, so they can hear all about your personal information and they have to keep it personal. More on the Americans with Disabilities Act. Sometimes it takes dealing with a disability, the trauma, the relearning, the months of rehabilitative therapy to uncover the true abilities and how we can put them to work for us in ways we may have never imagined. And that's Tammy Duckworth from the United States Senator. So to disclose or not. So I have had this conversation with my colleagues, and I've had this discussion a lot on Facebook and on Reddit about whether or not you should disclose your condition at work, and not just to HR for accommodations, but just to your boss. And there are two schools of thought. I've heard reasons for both. So reasons why you would want to disclose. If you're requesting an accommodation under the ADA that you must disclose, well, obviously you would do that, but you would do that with your HR department. If you have a prolonged absence and you're requesting leave under FMLA, you must disclose. Again, that would be with your HR department. If you're using your employer-sponsored long or short-term disability, you may have to disclose. Those are reasons why you should disclose, or you would have to. And also, well, I'll talk about that in a second. But cons of disclosing, I ran into this problem because I disclosed the first time I had my first full-time job. I was diagnosed it was my first year of being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And I was just telling everybody in the world because it was a big deal to me. I thought people needed to know. I thought my manager needed to know. I thought my colleagues needed to know. That came around and bit me right in the patukas. So you're not legally required to tell your employer that you have any illness. I tend to think that mental health is very personal, just as physical health issues are. I mean, I've got bipolar disorder. I also have like irritable bowel syndrome and some other, and plantar fasciitis. I don't go around telling people about that. So I think that personally that, mental health is just as private as physical health. Legally, you can't be fired for having mental illness. You can't be, because that violates ADA law. But in reality, it can be very difficult to prove why someone was fired. I have worked as a manager for over 10 years. And I can tell you, if somebody is performing not great, or somebody's being very, and I've never done this myself, but I can tell you that if somebody's, going around talking about themselves personally or whatever, people can find reasons to fire you any type of way that they can. And that they can just say, oh, they can give real reasons. They can give fake reasons that are legal. Like, oh, their performance wasn't where they were. They missed X amount of days. There are valid reasons for terminating someone. So even if somebody doesn't like the fact that you have mental health issues, and because they're ignorant, they can find a way to fire you, but make it sound legal on paper. I don't want to scare you, but that's one of the reasons why I keep my mental health status to myself. It can negatively impact others' views of you, as if they see you through the bipolar lens and they don't really understand what bipolar is. They might just think you're crazy. They may go around and gossip about, oh, that Alice girl, she's crazy. And I know at work sometimes my anxiety gets bad, and my anxiety is evident. And I don't need people going around going, oh, maybe she's manic, maybe she's hallucinating. I don't need people talking about me behind my back. Because I know people do, because I've been working for a very long time, and I know people love to gossip. So I just make sure to keep my personal information personal, because I don't want people thinking something about myself just because well, she's got this diagnosis. And it can affect your relationships with coworkers. They may not understand what mental health diagnoses mean. They may not know much about bipolar disorder, and it can negatively impact you. My go-to piece of advice when it comes to working with a mental health disorder, I love, and this has served me so much over the last 15 years, I came up with a very sympathetic medical excuse. Because you can't go around work saying, oh, well, I have bipolar disorder, or I'm hypomanic today, X, Y, and Z, because people, again, have preconceived notions of what that means. But if somebody has diabetes or somebody has asthma, like, people are very sympathetic towards medical disorders. So I've come up with I've come up with an excuse. I say I have sleep disorders. which is true because before I had bipolar disorder, I had a lot of sleep disorders. So I just say, I have a lot of sleep issues that require a full night's sleep. If I have a bad night, I may seem kind of off. And that has served me so well because those days when I do come to work and I'm fighting an episode or my anxiety's through the roof, and people are like, oh, are you okay? What's wrong? I say, oh, you know what? I just had a really bad night. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, oh, whatever we can do to make you feel better. And it works like a charm. So I love to say that I have sleep disorders. That has always served me well. I recommend finding a disorder that works for you. I actually told my old therapist about having a sleep disorder, my sympathetic medical excuse. And she said that was brilliant. And she says, as long as like your symptoms match with whatever you're saying, it's a great way to say that you're not well without saying why you're not well.
All right, reaching balance at home. All right, so are we doing this one together?
Sure.
Okay. So parenting. I am not a parent, but I have a lot of friends who are bipolar who are parents. Some things that you want to do as a parent is to reduce the triggers around you. Even when you're not feeling up for it, still do things with your children. Connect with other family members for support. Having a strong support system is amazing. If you are struggling with taking care of your child, having another family member there who knows what's going on with you and can step in for you at that time is really helpful. Always check in with a therapist. Take time out. Take step backs. Slow things down. Ask your kids for feedback and listen. Speak kindly to your children. There's a technique. I actually had a client. I'm not going to get into it because HIPAA. But if you struggle with your emotions, getting angry, there is a technique where you can actually keep a rubber band on your wrist, and when you're feeling like angry, upset, snap that rubber band, and tell yourself a positive affirmation like this too shall pass, so that you're not saying things that you don't want to be saying to your children. And don't try to be perfect. No one is. There's no rule book on parenting. My parents aren't bipolar. They're not perfect. No parents are. One thing I do want to add is there are a lot of books out there for kids to teach them about their parents' disorder. So if anyone wants a recommendation, there's a book called Darla the Elephant Has Bipolar Disorder. It's for kids like 6 to 10 years old. It's really cute. Alice, you want to do this one?
Sure. Communicate when you're not doing well. This is something that I employ all the time at my house. If you're not doing well and you're struggling, tell your family and your friends when you are struggling. Because that lets them know what's going on. And I know for myself, when I'm struggling, I can get kind of been told that I can be kind of like short with people, or I stomp around the house and slam doors and things. And I don't do it intentionally. I don't even realize that I'm doing it. So when I'm dealing with something and I tell my husband what's going on, he's like, oh, okay. He understands, and then he knows what he needs. We've been together a really long time, so he knows how he tries. He talks softly to me. He tries to be a little bit extra supportive, and it really pays off instead of sitting there suffering in silence. Letting them know so they can provide you with the support that you need. And if you need something specific, tell them what that is. Don't be like, well, I'll let you figure that out. And then just as we talked about, learning your triggers and finding, what grounds you, learn how other people can support you and what would be helpful to you. And like for me, my biggest way for me to recenter is I like to take my, it's like if I'm really off, I like to take my pills a little bit early and go to bed early. And then I just tell my husband that. He's just like, okay, got it. I'm on my own for dinner, no problem. So I know what I need to take care of myself. Sometimes I put myself in what I call adult timeout, which sounds, fancy. It's just me sitting in my bedroom watching YouTube, but that works really well for me. So that's, sometimes my support is just like, hey, leave me alone. Or hey, can you make dinner? Or hey, like I'm going to bed early. Um, and also what I find really helpful is using your support system for reality checking if you don't trust your judgment. Because bipolar disorder does a number on our judgment. I know it makes a lot of us paranoid and makes us think, may give us delusions, make us think grandiose things. So for me, I get paranoid more than anything. And in the moment, my paranoia feels like sound judgment, feels like reality. So I always touch base with my husband and say, hey, this is what I think. And he's just like, yeah, that's not how reality is. I can't I can't talk about how important that is enough. Really, reality checking really does help ground you because you're talking to somebody who knows you, who loves you, who supports you, and they can tell you the world that really exists because sometimes our mental health clouds our judgment, even though it feels so real in the moment. Oh,
So
like I said, going into adult time out, that's for me, like that helps. And I always recommend people, so especially if you deal with, if you get paranoid or I get sometimes like manic rage where I just get really irate and I just kind of want to like stomp around and break things. Sometimes I turn it, like I always identify very much with the Hulk. He's my favorite Avenger. So for me, like instead of doing all the things I want to do and slamming doors and stomping around, I recognize that like, hey, you need to calm down. So I find my peaceful spot, which is in my bedroom, and I like to watch silly YouTube channel of videos of like cats falling off of tables, and it really does center me, and it's very grounding. If you're better than me, maybe you can do things that you like meditation, using, um, or meditate, or maybe do some yoga or go exercise. That's another thing that I do sometimes when I'm like, I need some time, or sometimes I just go for a run, and that, I feel isolated in going for my run, but I also get to shake out the anxiety, shake out the rage that I'm feeling. So whatever you can find that helps slow your mind, that helps ground you, figure that out and call it your own adult timeout.
all right, so summary. Medication and therapy are absolutely vital to keeping bipolar disorder under control. We also need a holistic approach to caring for ourselves from the inside and out. Does anyone have any questions?
We have two people in the chat. I see two things in the chat. I can't pull it up on my phone.
I see it. You just bought the book. Cool. Yeah, isn't it? It's a really, really good book. I have a copy of it. Not a physical copy of it. Darla the elephant has bipolar disorder. I have a what's it called, copy of it. Digital copy. It's really, really good for kids. So I'm gonna stop sharing. Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have any comments?
I would just like to comment the importance of pill separator. I keep this on my desk. Love this. And the bigger ones you get, you can always throw in some extra like vitamins, so you don't have to worry about taking vitamins. See?
Yeah. This isn't actually mine. Mine is bigger, but that's the one that, like, one of the kinds that we hand out to people. We have two. We have two a day packs and one a day pack for our medication adherence kits for people who want them. Let's see. What if the rubber band technique annoys or angers the person? I've never heard of that. I have done the rubber band technique with hundreds of people, and it has never bothered them. What do you mean by annoy or anger them? like bother them that you're doing it, or bothers yourself by doing it? Because if it's not something that works for you, you can also step away. There's another technique that you can use. There's another technique that you can use. Oh, if it would continue to bother them. Stepping away. Another technique that you can use is the ice water trick. It is so much better than yelling at your children, than walking away and calming down. Same with relationships, friends, family. The ice water trick is one where you get a bucket, you fill it with ice and cold water, and you stick your hands in it, and you hold your hands, stick as much as you can into it, and hold it in there for as long as you can. And the reason this works is because our brains cannot function. We cannot think about things when we are feeling pain, which is why the rubber band trick helps. Really, really hot or really, really cold. That's why sleeping, when you're really, really cold, you're gonna have a hard time sleeping. When you're really, really hot, you're gonna have a hard time sleeping. So that's another technique that I teach people when they're struggling with anger or anxiety, having a panic attack, having suicidal ideations. It can help. Any other questions? Oh, and let me see if I can pull up that book for you guys really quick. Yeah, here we go. I'm gonna put it in the chat first. How do I do this? Oh, there we go. It's on Amazon, and then I'm going to share my screen. And here we go. Darla the elephant has bipolar disorder. So it just explains for a child like what bipolar disorder is, so that they can understand it. And hopefully one day someone will write a book for children who have bipolar disorder, so that they can better understand what it's like, what's going on with them. So if no one has any more questions, that's it for our psychoeducation class today.
Hey, Kat, looks like
Yeah.
they have one. I found it on Walmart. It's Brandon and the Bipolar Bear, and it talks about somebody having bipolar.
Oh,
kid.
cool. A bipolar kid?
This is fictional story about Brandon, a young boy living with bipolar disorder.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Will you shoot that to me will you send me a message on Facebook with that?
Yep, sure will.
Thank you so much. I would love that.
I just read the first 2 lines of it, so I don't know exactly everything, but I will send it to you.
That is something I can use as a resource for one of my jobs. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have a comment that most pharmacies will do like free blister packing or bubble packing of meds, which is helpful if you have several. And then it's like laid out. It's kind of like a disposable pill container.
Yep, that's true.
So I get that from my pharmacy every week.
There are some pharmacies in that you have to have good insurance with. Well, actually, no. Medicaid does cover it. Because
I'm in Canada, the free part of the pharmacy.
Oh yeah, you guys have the good system. There is I know in Maryland, because I used to work for I used to be a psychiatric rehabilitation counselor, and we had clients who had these pouches that they could just the pharmacy would put all the pills for that time of day in that pouch, and all they had to do was open it, and it had the names of all the medications. It had the time, the date, and it just came in strips, and you'd strip it off. And if you had 3 times a day, you would just take it. It was called Terrapin Pharmacy. I know they're trying to do more stuff like that, for people who have schizophrenia, for people who have schizoaffective disorder. They also have started making machines now that dispense medications that they can put in your home, but they do that more in residential housing, and it's sort of a, what's the word? They're still trying it out, but yeah.
Kat, I use your mood calendar every day. It's
Oh.
very, 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 very helpful.
Good. It is really, really helpful. It helps me. It helps it really helps you figure out what's going on, and like you can look at it, you can be like, for me, I look at it and I can be proud of myself because I can say I checked off like all these days. I took my medication straight for a month. I was stable for a month, you know, and then you can see like where there are issues. And there's a section in the there's a section for notes in the journal. Let me pull it up really quick.
Yeah, it's right here. It's like life event.
Yeah, life event. So I don't use it the way that most people do, and I tell people to use it the way they want to use it. These are for clinical trials. They were made for clinical trials. They're still used in clinical trials today. So what I do with the life event is I'll put in like triggers, like say I had a fight with my mom. That may have affected like, my mood for the day. It may not be like medication related.
I have that fight with mom. But it also helps like talking to your therapist. So you can go back and look and go, oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing with medication, always have a friend that can remind you.
Mm-hmm. Kate Burrows, the director of networking firm, Research and Conversations. She's one of my best friends. We publish papers together often. She will text me every single day and ask me if I've taken my medication. And vice versa. We make sure we're on top of each other. It helps, It really does help. So, all right. Well, it was really good to see all of you guys. It was really nice talking to you guys. Glad we had some time to talk beforehand too. We'll have another psychoeducation class coming up, and I've got some researchers who are going to give some guest lectures in the next few months. But everyone is gearing up for a conference in Canada coming up, and then this conference in New York City coming up that are really, really big. So no one's available for the next 2 months, but we'll have some people soon.
And if you have ideas for what kind of psychoeducational courses you'd like to see in 2024, please let us know, because we love, like, you're our biggest inspiration.
You guys are the reason we do this. All right. So I hope you all have a good night, a good day, wherever you are. And I will talk to you guys later.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank-